Here we go. Connecting. All right.
Connected.
We are connected. Now we're just waiting. Waiting for our friends and viewers to show up.
Here comes my notification.
All right.
Here we go. Bonk.
Got 4 concurrent viewers already and 1 like. Hey guys.
And 1 me.
And 1 you? Yep. We had 4, now we have 2. I'm sure they'll come back up again. They're like, what's going on? There's 4 again.
And now we're ringing in my ears.
Hey guys, how you doing? We're alive and well at the moment.
Jonathan said hello.
Okay, he's not showing up on my chat window. There we go. Somehow it was turned off. My window. Hi, Jonathan. That makes it difficult for me to say hi if I can't see anything. Hi, Susan from Indianapolis. Hi, Mia. Yay. Hi, Ryder. All right, so we have survived this week. That was a rough week, and hopefully we can now wait until the regularly scheduled time for the next thing in the hospital. Hi, Mary. So we're sort of like, sort of hyper at the moment, still coming down from all that and trying to take a breath and relax a little bit. So this will be a fun thing to do. So, yay. Ask questions. Just keep us distracted. It's like the things you have to figure out how to do when you're going through stressors. I did a good bath this morning. That was one of the things that I did to try and let go of all that stuff. So
I just need to do a bunch more meditation. I'm not back to stable on that at all.
Yeah, well, your entire system was off.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that you tend to do was off and whatnot. So, yeah.
Yeah, your body really gets in the routine of doing those meditations and then expects them.
Yeah. It's sort of like the routine I have before going to sleep at night. If I don't do it, then I don't feel like ready to actually go to sleep. So, yes, and that's what I did. The Epsom salts are one of my go-to things to do for that, because earth, along with my, I have a special stone that I use in my bath, a piece of aquamarine that I've been using now for quite a few years. And so I charge it up and charge up my water whenever I get in to just try and help draw stuff out. I was thinking about some of the songs like air moves us, fire transforms us, water shapes us, earth heals us, that kind of idea when I was in the bath. And, trying to let go of stress and whatnot. Jonathan says, usually I like it when you guys give us a 5-minute update on you guys before we start, but do you ever see, sense Akasha beings out and about?
Akasha beings.
I don't really think...
Please clarify
Yeah.
Akasha beings.
Yeah, because that's not... Hi, Johnny.
You can't actually have a being that's made out of Akasha entirely.
Ruth says, hi all. Hi, Siofra. Hi, Ruth. I mean, if you mean beings from other planes, maybe that would be a yes, because I have certainly met a few from different planes above the Earth zone that I guess could be thought of a little bit like Akasha in that they're very difficult to connect with. And their thought processes are different. When I was channeling, I had a being that came through that made me feel like I was being held on the edge of insanity for the entire time that it inhabited my body or connected to it or whatever, however they do that. So, yeah, he's a little bit rough. Taylor says, hello, I thought you all were holding off today. Glad you're feeling better. Well, we held off on doing the live videos because I have to be focused, or not the live videos, the regular videos that we put up every week, because I was too stressed, and Ian had ended up in the hospital twice this week. So, but we're okay today, and so yes, we're here. It's a good opportunity for us to think about something else for a period of time. Canary says, hello, I want that necklace. Well, it is for sale. I haven't put it up on my Etsy site yet, but it's an expensive one because it's gold-plated seed beads. So it's the parts on it were fairly expensive when I purchased them and made it, but I am going to get it up there on our Etsy site. And if you can afford it, it's yours. I made it originally for myself, but when I made my Celtic dragon necklace, I liked that one even better, so I decided that one was mine, and so this one I'm willing to let go of. So I'm glad you like it. I was definitely, trying to do a semi-reproduction of a winged Isis kind of necklace. That was obviously my inspiration, and Isis is a goddess that I worked with in several past lives, so it seemed to work. Frankie says, hello, I haven't made it to a live in a while. Super happy to be here around your energy. Hello, Frankie. Glad to have you back. Mia says, I am struggling with my mom. She blames all her problems on my magic practice.
Well, that sucks.
Oh, I'm so sorry. This is what happens when people don't know what magic actually is, and if they're coming at it from a religious and superstitious stance. Yeah, it's kind of like if I go into a potentially haunted location, everything that happens in that house suddenly becomes part of the haunting, whether it's related to it or not. So if they have bad wiring and their lights are flickering, it's the ghost. And, so people have a tendency to take a big cauldron of meaning and shove it all in and think it all is related to each other. So I'm sorry. Jonathan says, it relates to what you said last week about not noticing ancestors. I figure they might be in Akasha. I know you see astral and mental plane beings, so I wondered if, besides Moita, you notice Akasha.
Well, the way I understand in Akasha to be, it is the source from which all things derive, so anything other than Akasha is outside the Akasha by definition. But we speak of the Akashic records and things which we can search through, but Akasha can't be, it penetrates and permeates all things. It has a lot of the characteristics that they ascribe to the quality of God, but you can bring down things like you could, if you were to try to say, like, you wanted to manifest something down from the Akasha, you'd have to be able to, you can put your consciousness in your Akashic point at the center of you. It feels like your entire body, your body occupies infinite space and you're infinitely small. That puts your mental body in contact with the Akasha, and you can bring something down from there by forming an idea in the Akasha and getting it to manifest down on all the planes. But Akasha is just like, it's like if somebody were to say an Ein Sof being, to use a Kabbalistic term, which is a negative point where things can't really exist. I always picture the Akasha mentally as being combined of positive and negative all squished together, so it's kind of like a gray where everything is in it but it's non-differentiated. So you can get to the Akashic records and see them and such, but you can't do anything directly like that with the Akasha, and you can to a certain extent too. So yeah, that's a good one, but I don't believe yeah, you won't find beings in the Akasha, but you can find um, like seeds of ideas and things. Be more like a seed plane or something, but even that's not accurate.
Well, when I was at the Akashic Records, there was a being there who helped me to remember what I saw, but I don't think he would be of Akasha. I think he was just like a spirit being made of other things that was there to assist my
Yeah.
remembrance because there was a specific task I was trying to do.
We have to remember that the reason we interpret all these things as visual or audio is due to the way our own brain interprets things. If you didn't have to hear what a being was saying or see what it was saying, but it could transmit it directly to you in images, then you solve that problem. That wasn't what I was trying to get to at the end of that, but where was I going with that? Sorry.
The Akasha got us.
It's been a long week.
Yeah. So he's a little bit
I did have a
spacey.
point to that, but I lost it.
That's okay. So Canary says that Mia, I've been there. It's not nice. You'll get through it when people are blaming your magic on everything. Jessica says, hi, Siofra. Hi, Ian. Hope you're feeling better. He is definitely feeling a little bit better today. Thank goodness. Ryder says that Mia Emerson, I understand that. Mia says, thank you guys. It's good not to be alone and to understand. It's like it's someone else's projection of what you're doing, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the reality of what you're doing. That's the thing about projections. They don't really have to have any basis in reality whatsoever, except in the mind of the person who's projecting them. So Philippa says, hello all, I'm really tired and it's late in the UK, so I'm probably not stopping, but I want to say thank you to you, Siofra and Ian, for the Kundalini advice. You're welcome. We're glad that it was helpful. Elater says, I made it finally after 3 weeks. Congratulations. Welcome. Taylor says, sometimes in my dreams I'll have memories that I would not have in my waking life. Is this common? I think so, because dream images, they can be from other lifetimes. They can be from alternative lifetimes or life potentials.
I would think it was possible. I probably have had that happen in my dreams. I don't recall specifically, but it seems like I might have at some point had a couple of those, but not with any meaning to them.
Well, sometimes you can meet people in your dreams that you may never meet in real life. A lot of people have dreams about being at university and school and stuff like that. And I believe that those are probably places on the astral and mental plane where some people go to learn things and try to put things together, not always just your own unconscious that's trying to work things out. So, yeah. But, you don't necessarily have to put too much meaning into them. It just really depends upon what's going on in your life. So Canary says, my mother had an alcohol problem and grandmother would ring me up. What have you done? My mother hooks up with some no good dude. My mother calls me telling me, what have I done to her? People aren't responsible for their own actions, don't you know? I mean, they blame the devil in certain religions for everything that goes wrong with them. Why wouldn't they blame a witch that they know?
Unfortunately, it's a common compensation practice to blame somebody else, so it's probably just one of those things. I'm sure she probably does it with everybody. And
well, it's
magic practice.
It's denying responsibility for your own actions, which is not helpful for anybody, especially the person who's being, pointed to. Jonathan says, thanks. Is the time-space between reincarnations not in the Akasha? That's kind of my point, that even the most sensitive spiritualist won't notice intelligences existing in the Akasha. Make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, to say anything different, I would have to understand, how that would happen. So, yeah, it makes sense to me that you wouldn't generally.
I'm not sure if you may not be just part of the Akasha in between reincarnations either. You could be part of a group soul on a mental or astral plane that's just sort of for you kind of thing. Like, everyone has a different kind of afterlife.
Yeah, no. At this point, I'm just guessing.
We are all just guessing.
If I could work in the Akasha that well, then maybe I could answer that question, but not anywhere that good.
It's very uncomfortable being in the Akasha for a long period of time. When I channeled the thing called silence, that was sort of what that was like. It was like I was outside time and space, and I could see time like a stream, and I could look in at any portion of it to follow, like an invention or an energy thing. But I didn't care for being there because it's sort of hard to describe, but it was very unpleasant for me as a human to be in this total silence, and to be filled with it. It was just very strange. Mia says, Siofra, have you ever thought write a book about magic? Yes, but instead I'm doing all these videos so you guys can get all of my experiences, as many as I can get down, and because most of them might not make it into a book. Canary says, when I did a past life regression, does that mean I went into the Akasha? Not necessarily.
You're seeing
your own memories.
Using the Akasha as a
memory connection.
Yeah, it's.
I don't think they can hear you from over there.
Yeah,
He has to lay down and put his hernia back in at the moment. It's kind of like when I connected to a past life, I didn't think of it as going through the Akasha in order to get there so much as going into my own personal memories as a spirit being. So say every life you have is like a pearl or whatever stone you like, or a flower or what have you, and each one is sort of separate on its own. But then there's this over you, sort of the larger you that is where all those pieces went down to, and you can connect between those pieces sometimes by going through your own oversoul, is the term that Jane Roberts came up with, or Jane Roberts, and it works for that because it's like there's the larger you that's composed of every experience you've ever had in all life and all time, since time and space are simultaneous. They're not linear. We just experience them as a linear thing. And so when you're doing a past or future life regression, what you're doing is you're tapping into that string of streams of experiences and stuff like that. So
I actually did have an experience once which relates to this, which is a short experience. I once had an image where my past lives and future lives were all connected together as a string of pearls. I was floating outside them, and there was this thread of light that connected all of them like a string. And so yeah, you can kind of be, I guess I was in the Akasha during that. It usually causes you to stop thinking, so it makes it hard. You have to just observe directly.
So Taylor says, I see you, thank you. It's usually something mundane. Canary says, when I did a past life regression, I did that one, sorry. I would buy your book. I keep wasting money on rubbish books. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Dark Soul says, hello, could you give some tips on cutting off toxic people and parts of yourself? Setting boundaries, that's what it's about. Deciding what you're willing to put up with and what's okay for you, and putting yourself first. It's not about being selfish in the sense that you're the only thing in the universe that matters, but it's about being self-aware as to what is good and what is not good for you and for your progress. And, toxic relationships with people, generally speaking, don't really go anywhere. They just bring you down, and a toxic individual wants to change you to become toxic like them, because generally speaking, someone who's involved in some kind of toxic behavior feels threatened by anyone that they know that isn't also involved in the same toxic behavior. So they will do their best to try and drag you into whatever it is they're doing, which is why they're not good people to be around. Taking personal responsibility for your own actions is part of this process, because you choose the people you allow close to you, and then you can choose to let people go and not have anything to do with them. And that works for blood family as well as for friends that you've made over the years. As we change and become more personally responsible and personally aware, the people around us are not going to like what we're doing, those who aren't also changing and becoming more themselves. And so, that creates that chaos and confusion and all the other stuff that comes along with it. So you change too much, you have to change the people you're around because the other people aren't going to like it. They're not going to want you to change. And I'm sure most of us have had this experience, like, you go back to a childhood scenario, and suddenly you feel like you did when you were little, with all of the confusion and worrying about people, what they think of you, etc. And that's sort of along the same lines as that. That's kind of getting to the point where that's not going to happen for you. And toxic parts of yourself is you decide to change things you don't like, and that takes work. That's what shadow work is about, acknowledging things that you think are not good behaviors, things you don't want to continue to do, and then replacing them with something that you want to do. It's not enough to just sort of say, I'm not going to do this negative thing, or I'm not going to have this negative belief. You actually need to replace it with something to fill that space. Otherwise, you just end up with a vacuum, and when you're down, the vacuum will want to fill itself back up with whatever it is you took out of there. So you need to actually replace those things with something else. So either a more positive kind of activity or thought process, and forgiving yourself for not being perfect, because we're all in progress. We're not, none of us are complete. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here chatting, I'd assume. So Mia says, I'm afraid to go to the astral. What advice could you give? Well, go to the mental plane instead of the astral plane, and if you're afraid, don't go, because, fear in there is a bad idea.
Yeah, I probably would I'm sure you've done something on the mental and astral planes on a video about the difference between those and the types of travel, so
I have.
Something like that.
But, if you're concerned about what might happen there, make sure that you set up your protections before you go. Call upon your higher guardian spirit or guardian angel or ancestor, depending on your path and how you work, your spirit animal, your power animal, whatever, to be there to guide you and to keep you safe. Cast a circle, do the magical groundwork and set up those magical boundaries before you attempt it, which would be another way of doing that, and giving you some advice on that. So Canary says that, Mia, I have the same problem, though when I do actually project, I find I'm not scared at all. I think for me it was more the fear of being afraid than of the experience itself. Well, we're afraid of things that we don't understand or things that are new. New experiences are often frightening because we haven't had them yet. And we're not sure exactly what's going to happen, so our imagination can just sort of take off and do some stuff. Jonathan says, awesome insights on Akasha. Last Akasha question, can we agree that there are intelligences in the Akasha and that it is very unlikely that we would notice them the same as the Fae or thought forms? Yeah. The Akasha would be like the entire fabric of the universe and the universal mind, and so that would...
Yeah, speaking for myself, I would agree that if there were intelligences in the Akasha, that it would be very unlikely we would notice them. But Barton doesn't explain thoroughly how that works, and I don't understand it thoroughly enough. I guess the thing is, from the two, I have two different things that are conflicting, and that's that I know that you can use the Akasha, and that you can plant a seed in the Akasha and have it manifest down. I know you can see your past lives, like I saw them all on a string as pearls. I didn't look into any specific one. So I know you can be in it and have stuff happen, and yet I don't know if that qualifies as being in the Akasha or how exactly that happens. So if I could clear that up a little more, I would, but that's about it. That's the limits of my understanding. So I don't know on that.
So Mia and Canary were telling each other thank you. Jessica says, is there a way to bar the image of someone from your mind's eye? An abusive figure I haven't seen in a decade has been appearing in my dreams with increasing frequency over the past 6 months or so. Well, I would kick their butt in your dream is what I would do.
Yeah, I'd say it's important to try and do something about that, because it could imply, because we're unconsciously telepathic even for people we don't like a lot, that we could be picking up their thought forms, so they might be thinking about you at that time or something.
I had that kind of thing happen when one of my exes decided to try and get a hold of me via his son to get a hold of my son, kind of thing, and he didn't like the response I gave to his other son, and I suddenly found his voice in my head and saying the things he used to say. He was a psychopath and a sociopath, and saying things like, you can't hide from me, I'll always know where you are, I'll always be able to find you, that kind of stuff. And so I just took all of that and sent it straight back at him and said, I don't accept this. This isn't, this is your problem, and get the hell out. And so, sometimes that's what you have to do. It's an opportunity to stand up for yourself and your rights as a human, not to have someone else's intrusive thoughts in your head and send them back. Put up a big mirror and just shoot them right back at him. If it's in a dream, kick his ass. That's what I would do. Or tell him to get the hell out. Open the door, kick him out, shut the door behind him. It's an opportunity for you to work with your subconscious. So that would be what I think. Ryder says, absolutely, people don't like the changes, totally agree. Dark Soul said, thank you so much, I appreciate it a lot, you're welcome. Jonathan says, Canary, how was your past life regression? Did you find out you were Cleopatra? I hear that's very common. It is. Isn't it amazing how common that is? Philippa says, when Barton talks of using a sidereal pendulum to determine if an elementary has completed its task, as they omit magnetic electrical charge, what material is the pendulum made from, please?
Well, it doesn't matter too much. I don't think I would like one that was all plastic. I have one made of brass attached to a silk cord that I use. It works very well.
Canary says that, Jonathan, I think the Akasha is an intelligence within of itself. So I agree with that. Mia says, how did you guys meet each other? At a pagan dessert potluck. I was high on chocolate cake.
Who could meet at a better place? That's just perfect.
I know, a pagan dessert potluck. How many of those are there?
None around here.
Nah, we don't have very many around here. We tried for a while. We were doing meet and greets, but yeah.
Hello.
Canary says, at Jonathan, not really. I was in Victorian times and was born into high class, and my mother was the same mother as I know, and I ended up running off with the shoemaker, who was basically like a slave. Aha! You went against your mother's wishes. Sounds familiar. A slave to our house. Yes, Taylor says, what is the difference between the mental and astral planes? And that Taylor Canary says, that's a good question. I think I understand it, but is something I would be able to explain it very well. Okay, so the main way to think of the difference between the astral and mental plane is the astral plane has all of your emotions and feelings are very real and vivid, and the mental plane is more distant emotionally. You see things, but you don't have to feel them.
Yeah.
So you can see stuff in the astral plane, but you're also going to feel the things that are happening in it. And as far as your bodies are concerned, physical is the densest, astral is your next dense body, mental is the next body going up, and then, of course, spirit would be your lightest body, and that would be closer to the Akasha kind of thing. So I do more mental travel because it's safer. It gives me overview of what's going on.
Yeah, and if you see something horrible, it just doesn't like get you like it. You know, if you're astral, then it would be more like you were actually physically there and how it would affect you.
So writer says, very true, if you have had friends and family you would always drink and smoke dope with, and you suddenly give up drinking and smoking, they really don't like it. Yes, they really don't like it.
True, yeah.
Because, you know, they feel it's a personal insult to their way of life, because they know they're doing something that's probably not good for them. Jonathan says, Canary sounds extremely interesting, and you weren't a witch getting caught, and you had a fling with a shoemaker, yes. Most of the ones that I remembered were not fun. A lot of them weren't fun. Ryder said, same with if you decide to be a celibate. Folks always trying to get you into bed by convincing you they can give you what you need and want.
Yeah,
Ryder says, if you decide to walk away from people who are unwelcoming and treat you like some sort of leper, they refuse to acknowledge they were even the problem. So much for their wisdom and intelligence. This is true. Taking responsibility for, for stuff is definitely a hard one for people. I don't understand why. It's like they don't like it. So Jessica said, Siofra, I love your answer so much. Older me would very much love to kick his ass on behalf of the younger me.
Yes, and I wanted to mention that was held for review, so please do not use profanity. But I let that one through.
Yeah. Eleador, okay. And sometimes, Mia, maybe astral can be a great way to look through your fear, see from where it's coming inside of you, and to understand that part, release it, heal it, what you like. Canary says that Jonathan, yeah, that was the one thing I was going to say in that life. I died of natural causes. Yay me, I can do it. I think that was the biggest lesson for going into that life, to be honest. And yeah, imagine me going against my mother. Not like me at all. Can't believe it. Ha ha. Danny says, hi, lovely people. Have either of you worked the Barden Kabbalah? Ian has worked the Kabbalah.
Yes, I have.
He is working, I should say.
I'm learning about it. Yeah, it's boy, a lot of repetition there if you want to really get it down properly.
Philippa says, at Ian, thank you. I don't do plastic. I have an amethyst and a clear quartz pendulum. I think I was getting confused due to the elementary's electrical charge and the fact brass is non-magnetic.
No, I think amethyst or quartz would be great. I have an amethyst that I use sometimes as a pendulum also.
Mia says, Siofra, I feel like you are my grandma and I learn everything you say. Well, thank you. We were talking about that before the show started. I get that comment quite a bit, and since I'm of the right age to be a grandma, I don't find it offensive in the least. So thank you very much. So Mia at Elidor said thank you. Osrin says, what is the difference between astral plane and dreams? Okay, so dreams are something that can happen in the astral.
Lucid dreams, he points out.
Lucid dreams. Lucid dreams are when you know that you're dreaming, when you wake up inside of a dream and realize what you're doing, and then you can control it. Astral travel can happen from a dream state.
Yes, it can.
But doesn't necessarily, just having a lucid dream doesn't necessarily mean that you are astral traveling.
They are closely related, but getting control of your consciousness there is the hard part.
So Elidor says, and Siofra, did you think that it can be at the same time that there are separations between the planes and at the same time not, in a sense that the separations are only perceived by our mind? I actually have a real vivid feel for the different bodies that I have, so I see them as actual different vessels that different parts of my consciousness and awareness can inhabit.
Yes, but they are supposed to be also composed of gradations of finer and finer matter. So, and you've got your astral body is connected to the physical body through the astral matrix, and your mental body through the mental matrix. So they kind of go up and down the plane. So I think, honestly, myself, that the divisions are for our convenience and understanding them as human beings, and that in fact it's actually a density degree of everything altogether.
There's a lot of that kind of stuff.
That's my personal feeling about it.
Taryn says, hello, so glad to see you. Hi, Taryn. Ruth says, so I have the Necronomicon. Have you seen it? Yep, I've seen the Necronomicon. It's a make-believe book.
We have one or two versions around here somewhere.
Yep, it was made up by Lovecraft. Actually, I guess Lovecraft talked about it and then someone else made it up, didn't they? I'm trying to remember.
Well, I'm not sure if I don't think he had actually written one for the first actual version.
Yeah, you probably know more about it.
He did, yeah. That's
yeah.
One of the things I know nothing about.
But it's not one of the magical texts that we use for any reason at all at this point. Sort of like I've read the Malleus Maleficarum, but I wouldn't use it to determine if someone was a witch.
Basically, it's been pretty much determined to be fraudulent, however it came about, whether he did it himself or somebody else did, as far as academic study and stuff goes.
I can't remember the last time I looked at it. It's been years now. It's been around for quite a while, but not as long as like the Malleus Maleficarum, which doesn't actually mean it's a good book either.
So
age is not necessarily a good criteria. Accurate information is what I'm after, and that thing, the witch's hammer, ugh, what a horrible thing that was. But yeah. So I take it you have seen it, and what do you think of it? Are you finding it interesting? Maybe there's newer versions. I guess we'll wait till more questions come in. I got mine in 1976. Okay, so you've had yours for a while, one of the original ones.
I'm sure mine's... Oh, there we go. Now it came through. Okay. Starting to wonder.
Yeah. Delays.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the internet. It's like that.
Can be, yes.
But I think it's always good to read books and source materials. It doesn't mean just because you read them that you're going to use them. That's an assumption that a lot of people make, and your mother made that assumption.
Yeah, and you know, you got to have a certain amount of filter to filter out what's real information and what's not, but that just takes practice. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
So Mia says, do you read tarot? Any tips? Well, try to understand the symbolism of the cards and practice would be the main thing.
Yeah.
Jonathan says, do you think the shapes of crystals or stones makes any difference? For example, points, pyramids, spheres. I think that the energy of the stone moves in different ways. Like points are often used for directing things, pyramids for building things, spheres for, like, you know, holding energy in that shape.
Yeah, basically you got male and female aspects if you want to look at it that way, with the spear on one end and the spear on the other, so to speak.
So Ruth says that, yep, it is okay, the Necronomicon. Mia says, for beginners, same thing, learn the symbolism and practice, really. You can try dreaming about them, studying one card at a time to try and understand and comprehend it, doing different readings and stuff and see what you get out of it. Different tarot decks are going to have different results. So Ryder says, do you have any daily or weekly ritual routines? I have some daily routines. I often, first thing in the morning, recite that invocation to the dawn, to Aurora, to try and help set my day. Feeding the crows. The winter crow flock has arrived. I discovered just in the last few days, because I went outside and all of a sudden there were 30 crows yelling at me from the wires. So I had to go back in the house and get some peanuts and give to them before I was allowed to leave the premises. The bath, the kind of ritual bath I always do. In the evening, I often cast a circle or work with the spirits that might be in my room that are coming to say hello, and just try and be present during the day so that I'm as much in my life as I can be. So it's a matter of, you don't have to have specific rituals that you're doing. Magic is what's the word I'm looking for? Is a way of thinking, of being in a life. So it doesn't have to have a specific kinds of thing. Canary says, what magic books have anyone here had the most success with? I want a good book, but I'm currently just throwing my money away on rubbish, to be frank.
Well, I don't have anything I'd really recommend except for Barden's books at this point, because honestly, we have a large collection of books and things, and there's nothing that comes even close, depending if you're talking about standard magical books, because there are a lot of tantric texts and things like that that go into some real detail and stuff. But that kind of depends a little bit on what focus you're on. But for strictly for magic, that would be my thought, that I wouldn't recommend anyone but Barden stuff as being the most information you can buy for your money.
And I certainly found Starhawk's book, The Spiral of Dance, to be very useful for helping to reprogram my own subconscious. The exercises that she had in there I made very good use of, so that when I went into the incest survivors group, I was actually prepared the groundwork to be able to heal from those experiences that I had as a child. and you know, the standard kind of books are good to have a foundation. So anything by Dion Fortune or Buckland or Gardner are sort of like basic groundwork.
Those are all good recommendations.
You know,
sure.
That kind of thing. But some of it's historical. You know, I like Bonowitz. Real Magic was his first book that he wrote, and I really enjoyed that a lot. Finding books written by people who are actually practicing doing the craft and so forth. There's a lot of new books out there now that are kind of boilerplate magic books by people who may not actually be practitioners, that they figured out how to just throw a book together, and it could be like 30 or 40 pages on one subject. So I was reading an article about that a while back. So, you know, the people that you know have had experience in the field and have something valuable to actually share about their particular perspective. Starhawk is still very active in both the magical and the community activism and so forth for the earth and whatnot.
Might even, if a person wants an interesting subject, to take a look at Gerald Gardner's books, the original ones. While he's not a great author, it does give an interesting perspective on him and some of the ways he kind of melded ceremonial magic as part of modern witchcraft and joined those things together because of his mingling of the witch cult that he was in contact with, and Crowley's writings and things. Is kind of an interesting read for that reason. Maybe that might be a little
cerebral,
but I still found him interesting, even though he's not a very good writer of fiction.
The main thing is, of course, creating your own path. I mean, getting ideas from other people is a starting point. There's no doubt about it. Trying out their exercises to see if they fit your personality or your situation or whatever, if you can modify them or not. But the whole point of this path is creating your own personal relationship with the universe, and however you go about doing it, even if it's reading a book that doesn't work for you, which tells you something about what you don't want to do, can be helpful. So, you know. Jessica says to make good use of your local library. They usually have everything. Libby by Overdrive is a great app to borrow ebooks and audiobooks from home using your library card too. Writer says at Canary, your own book of shadows, basically anything I have created myself with a few gems I have found in the vast amounts of spells I have read. Shay says, hello, hope you're all well. We are much better today, Shay. Thank you for dropping in and saying hi on your break. Jonathan says, Mia, I summarized each card for myself with a sentence or a word. The process of doing that taught me tarot because I had to understand each card to do it. It's a handy reference material for me now.
Really, that is good for just studying the tarot, or good for your developing a lot of interesting personal characteristics and things, especially if the color symbolism and the picture symbolism is correct.
So Canary says that Jessica, not anywhere near a library, unfortunately, but will check out the ebooks, even though I do prefer physical copy. Eleanor says, have you an advice how to ground the mind when someone sees stuff too much, too fast, how to ground or integrate this all contradictory knowledge? Grounding is probably the most important thing you can learn how to do, and you can do that simply by going outside and sitting on the ground, and connecting to the earth. But you can use like grounding stones, like hematite is a good one because it's heavy and it has that kind of substance to it that makes it feel, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's a good grounding stone. Visualizing, connecting to the planet, putting your hands on the floor and trying to put excess energy and stuff into the ground. If you can't get outside, you can do it from inside of the house. And know that floors don't really separate you from the earth except in your own mind. And grow roots. You can do that from inside or from up in a high rise. The only place I couldn't ground was in an airplane. I do not like airplanes for that. The entire time I'm up there, it's like, yeah, okay, this is not normal. I do not like this at all. But other than that, it's something you can learn how to do, and you can, if you're having trouble trying to get rid of a thought of some kind, you can take some salt and some water, put it together, and put the thought that you're trying to ground out into the salt water, and then pour that onto the ground and let it go. Or put it in a stone and put that on the ground. When I was in the Kispiox, I was working through a lot of rage, and I don't know how many times I took a black rock and stuck it on my forehead and screamed at the universe and, put a lot of anger into the stone and then threw it in the river to let it go. Usually, if it's something like that, it takes more than once. It's a process. You have to develop that, and, you can get rid of it immediately, but then if it's not completed, more will come up, and then you have to get rid of it again. So it's not like a one-shot and you're done kind of thing, because the human brain doesn't seem to work that way. So Mia says, I found an old tree in the forest and feel really drawn to it, but it looks just like other trees.
That's okay.
It can look like any other tree in the forest, but if you have a special connection to it, then it's noticed you, and that's a good thing. Awesome. Ryder says that Canary, I thought for some reason you were asking about spells. Shay says, love that you're wearing your beautiful Isis collar today. I'm glad you enjoy it. Philippa says that Mia, I'm learning tarot. I bought 3 beginner's books, both based on Rider Waite, and a tarot journal to record each card as you learn. I cross-reference the information between the different books.
Which, of course, is the best way to have several sources.
Well, right,
That's
because
what I like.
there's no one correct interpretation of any particular card, in the sense that it needs to be in context with the energy of the person you're reading for, and
right, the way you understand it yourself,
and the situation that
all
you're
come
currently,
into it,
all that stuff. It's a living thing, not a static thing. It's like you could put the same
Right, if you're doing
exact card reading out for 10 different people, and a good reader is going to have 10 different interpretations of that same spread. So
Yeah.
intuition is a really huge part of tarot, and and just sort of like so a friend of mine bought me a tarot deck with the understanding that I was going to learn how to read it so that I could read her cards. So I did, and she came for a reading, and I freaked her out so much she became a Christian not long after that. Because I was telling her about a letter she got. She'd just met this guy, and I could just see it all in the cards. It was just sort of pretty obvious. And she's like, how can you see that? I said, I don't know. It's just right there in front of my face. I'm so sorry. Yeah, she didn't appreciate that at all. So that was kind of weird. But so you never know. Intuition is definitely a portion of doing a good
Well, it's
tarot
scary
reading.
when something people don't think will work or think they're doing as a lark or for fun actually works.
Oh
And they
yeah.
get freaked.
I don't know how many times I've helped people out with some kind of magical working and it's worked and then they'll never speak to me again. So, let's see. Jessica says at Canary, oh, that's too bad. Physical books are definitely nicer to use, but maybe with the ebook you can just use it as a preview and see if you like it before buying, which is a good idea. And Canary says, I've done that in the past, but I would like more of a formula to go off of something. And Jonathan says the 5,000 spells is the ultimate spellcraft reference material. It really got my practice going. Yes, you just have to make sure you do your research on those spells because they don't always give you the information that you need in order to do it correctly. It's just sort of a recipe book. It doesn't necessarily give you the actual temperature of the oven and how long you're supposed to cook it. Experiment. Mia said to thank them both. And Ryder said, Jonathan, yes, lots of good ideas in there to get you inspired, to get your own group going. Danny says, excellent, creating your own path. Yes, that's what this is about. If that's a book, then great. I've not heard of it. Taylor says, is it important to keep spiritual experience private? Sometimes I feel like it slows down process, maybe. I think that depends. There's some argument for keeping it private if you speak to people who are going to diminish your experience and discount it and try to convince you that it's all in your mind and it's not real, then that undermines the experience that you've had. So maybe if you want to share it, to try and be careful who you share it with, or wait till you get to the point where you don't care what other people think and they can't affect you at all.
Which would be my recommendation. And you can think of it like sticking a cork in a bottle. If you want that pressure to keep something going, to keep your own drive or your own force that direction moving, then the more you can keep it quiet, the more you can turn that into an actual energy that will move the process forward. Generally, though, bottle is closed too long, it explodes. So you generally.
It's a definite a personal call. And
yeah, and it depends entirely where you're at.
I've been accused of being too open, or as your former friend put it, too free with my opinion. Of course, to backstory that, at the time, he wouldn't stop talking long enough for me to actually let him know I disagreed with him. So I had to actually interrupt him and tell him my opinion because I didn't want him to think that I thought what he said was a good idea. But I have probably been more open than the average person, and I've had people tell me I should shut up and stop talking about stuff because it makes other people uncomfortable. And I'm like, but they asked me the question. If they ask me the question, I'm going to give them the answer. My assumption is if someone has the wherewithal to ask the question, then they better want to know the answer. So the universe is giving it through me in those situations. And, it's like not everyone's going to be like that, and that's perfectly okay. And at this point in my life, I'm less affected by what other people think of me than most people are, I'm assuming. So, in the beginning, if it was something that was really close and important, it would be an anxious thing for me to share with somebody else. So there's both room for both. Canary says, I will have a look. Thanks for the recommendations. I got one on Egyptian because I got a connection to it, and it was just blah, blah, blah to me. Taylor says, if I share, I mean. Yes, I think I answered that correctly. Ryder says at Canary, I understand that too. Elder says, I do it intuitively, that with hands. Canary says, Ryder thinks some people just write what they think sounds smart and have probably only had a minor experience, to be honest. The best book I got on magic was the cheapest one I ever got, which is interesting. And Ryder says at Canary, although it may be something you will come to understand later, that's happened to me before. Couldn't understand something, and it was blah. Then after a few years, I did. That's happened to us, too.
Oh, yeah, especially studying alchemy is a hard one. You work for years and years on that, and eventually you begin to understand it a little bit. so that you know enough to know that there's something there, but boy, is it a massive effort.
So Mia says that Eldador, I found some regular stones outside and holding them is helping me ground, which is good. Rocks are good. And a big rock is even better. I like sitting on them. I had this big, huge stone when I was a kid. It was a big boulder, and it kind of looked like a Cleopatra lounge. It, had this curve in the top and then flat. And I would go out there and lay on it in the hot sun after it'd been all warmed up and stuff. And it was pretty close to an apple tree back there, and I would just zone out and watch clouds and lay on that stone, and it always just felt comforting. I really liked it. So Danny says, what energy circulations do you do? For example, middle pillar technique or Chinese or Indian energy circulations?
Well, speaking for myself, I don't really currently practice energy circulations, and there's no reason that I don't, just that I've been involved with other things. The middle pillar technique is fine. I don't find the Golden Dawn stuff so interesting, other than the banishing ritual of the pentagram, which in my opinion is much more in a banishing ritual and does a whole lot for your self-development, because you're balancing the elements within you and other things when you do that properly. But so I don't get as much value out of the other things. But even if that is a long technique,
when we do the
yeah.
sacred tree meditation, we're definitely doing energy
That's true,
circulation.
yeah.
And that is
That's
like,
a similar-ish thing.
right, going down into the earth, bringing earth energy up, going up into the sky, spirit or whatever, bringing light energy down, mixing the two together, clearing out the chakras. So that would be the main technique that I'm using at this point, as far as any circulating of energy. And the pore breathing is part of it too. Learning how to breathe into different energy centers. When I was little, the spirits that came into my room when I went to bed at night gave me exercises to do, and one of the first exercises I remember them giving me and doing was breathing into different parts of my body and breathing up my spine. I did not know anything at the time about chakras or energy centers or anything at all. It was just this instruction that they would tell me what I needed to learn. And then later, when I learned the stuff, it made sense. Then it was like, oh, that's why I did that. And so being able to put your consciousness into different parts of your body, not just in your body, but even outside of your body, is a good spiritual exercise. Trying to put yourself like into the candle flame,
and that's one of Barden's also.
Yeah, I think not just Barden, but yeah.
Probably lots of.
Yeah. So Danny says, I mentioned this because Barden has poor breathing, etc., but no circulations of the energy. So I value your opinions based on your experience and thoughts.
While he doesn't have circulations of the energy, he does have exercises where you breathe in energy to each and every organ specifically, and things like that. So he covers the same ground and has his students doing the same things with exactly the same results without doing it specifically as an energy circulation.
All right. So Ryder says at Canary, I understand that my mom was a medium and did tarot. My dad was a healer. I have been fortunate to have been raised in such an eclectic background, which is awesome. That makes you a lot more open to new ideas and things like that. And Canary says at Ryder, it wasn't that it was overly complicated. It was like magic is good because magic and spells do spell work, and that's a good thing, kind of blah blah. Jonathan,
that's okay. If it inspires you, that's great.
Yeah. Jonathan says, Canary, have you got Barden's books? It's like a coloring in book for understanding and working magic. I put Barden ahead of Crowley, Gardner, or anyone else. I agree as far as his level of understanding and comprehension and the ease of understanding what he's talking about in a complex subject. And Canary says that Ryder want to chop childhood. Canary says, Jonathan, no, I haven't gotten a single one of Barden's books. I will have to get one next.
As far as Barden's books go, I just start with his first one, Initiation into Hermetics, but there's also a couple of other things about him now, and
Have they been translated yet into English? I think they're still in
yeah,
German.
there's 3 or 4 different books from some of his students, and some pictures of him and things that he left behind that was not published in previous books, and things like that. But Roboto is his fictional book, which tells you a lot about him in the background of it, as him as the main character, and it's not entirely fictional, but it's sort of like a fictionalized true account.
Is that Probato?
Yeah, yes. That was his stage name back in the
When he was doing a magician.
1920s or whenever it was, yeah.
We thought we found a movie about him once, but it was a different
The
magician.
word Probato came from Franz Barden, so you got the F, the Frab from that, and then the place Opava was the place that he came from. I'm not sure how that's properly pronounced.
Okay.
Sorry.
Ryder says at Canary, you wouldn't want mine. Endured a lot of abuse. Did not have much of a childhood. My teenage years were more free. Yeah, childhoods can be devastating. I know mine was. I wouldn't want to wish it on anyone. Philippa says my eldest daughter, or my eldest son, excuse me, is shadow working. He was at the gym and felt a vast amount of rage building up. So he went outside and repeatedly roared at the top of his lungs. He scared the hell out of passersby. I bet he did. I was lucky when I was doing my screaming and yelling and stuff. I was in the middle of nowhere, and my closest neighbor was about 1.5 miles away, so I don't think they heard me. Eleanor says, and yeah, Siofra, you inspired me the second or third time I watched you, that when I see a cut-down tree, that I made an object of power in a wood piece, if the spirit and nature agrees. Yes, absolutely.
Very nice.
Philippa says, and he stopped, smiled, and told them he was fine and went back into the gym. Well, I mean, I do random things in front of other people, and I wonder sometimes what they think, like when I'm talking out loud to an animal at an aquarium and it's doing what I ask it to, or at the zoo or whatever, and you know, I wonder what these people that are witnessing me doing this odd behavior and getting results think about what's happening, if they remember it ever, or if it blanks, they blank out, or they just like shake their head or what have you. But yeah, sometimes it's the best option. It's like, I'm fine, don't worry about it, everything's great. And Canary says at Ryder, sorry to hear that. No one likes to hear about an unhappy childhood. It's a sad thing. Children should all have happy childhoods. Elder says, so that they can have an anchor again in this world and continue living and doing its magic. Yeah. In fact, I've been thinking lately, like I want to make a fire wand, because I'm making the elemental wands, and I'm thinking of my first wand, the cedar tree that I have, and maybe transforming that into a fire wand, because that's always what it's been, is associated with fire for me. I'm still trying to decide, and it's still thinking about it, so we'll see. You never know. But yeah. So Canary says at Ryder, another experience I myself understand. Blessings to you. Philippa says, Barden has been my best book buy to date. Taylor says, recently I got a book about different magic and rituals of other cultures. It's great for me because it's like a PowerPoint cover the key elements. Well, it's always interesting to see the similarities and then some of the cultural differences and attitudes that people have about magic.
Yeah, and sometimes the general overviews can be very enlightening and interesting.
Yeah. I like watching foreign shows about magic because of that. You know?
Because you get a different perspective on them a lot of times than the
right.
standard American perspective.
Well, right, like that one about, what was it called, The Guardian or whatever? It was an Iranian show about a guy who was a guardian of his people, and all kinds of different magic and stuff was going on around him. I found that one was really interesting to watch because of that, and so, yeah, there've been a few of them that are like that, and you get to get their cultural perspective and their mythology instead of somebody from here deciding what their cultural perspective should be, which is nowhere near as interesting to me. Free Spirit says, hi Siofra, first time in your chat. Lovely to be here with everyone. Welcome, Free Spirit. We're always glad to have new people come in and join us. Everybody's welcome. Canary says, Free Spirit, hello and welcome. Everyone's welcoming them. Everyone says hello. Okay. I think Philippa says that Canary must have been typing at the same time. Everybody's saying hi to everybody. All right. Philippa, I was just going to say, did you read my mind? Osrin says, what do you think it means when once I lucid dreamed without any effort, but now I find it literally impossible to do that? What interchanges this might indicate? It overlaid with the start of intense inner work. I don't know.
I would probably guess, if I had to, that you were lucid dreaming because of an imbalance, and as you started doing your work, you started correcting your balance, and so that, because if it was caused by an imbalance of the elements, for example, then once they get back into proper balance, you'll probably get that ability back. But that would be my guess, is you were probably only able to do that because of an imbalance elsewhere.
That's actually pretty common, especially with extreme psychic, people who are born with extreme psychic abilities. And if they get into this path, in the beginning, when they start to do the work, their abilities seem to diminish. And that's because they're being balanced. But then when their abilities come back, they're stronger and in control.
Yeah.
That's
one of the major things, is
so then you can
control.
decide when you're driving your car if you're going to see the spirits that are crossing the road and try not to hit them, or if you're going to not see those people because they don't matter right now. That's one of my problems. So Free Spirit says, Siofra, what is your take on offerings to ancestors and its benefits to us? Well, I don't do ancestor worship in particular, not this particular life at any rate. I think it depends on your ancestors. Some people apparently give offerings to their ancestors to keep them from bothering them and making bad things happen. There's some, in my experience with people, there's some people have guardian angels, some people have ancestors in their actual line that come back as spirit guardians. Some people have different kinds of spirits that are around them to try and assist and help move them in the right direction or warn them of danger. And so it just depends upon what kind of grouping you happen to be in. So if you are one where your former relatives, grandparents, great-grandparents, or whatever have taken on the role of spirit ward, guardian, protector, teacher, what have you, then I would think the offerings would be the same as to a deity or a power or a spirit or whatever. It's creating a relationship with them. So when you make an offering to any kind of a spirit being, you're opening up a line of communication energetically, and you're saying, I want to have some kind of relationship with you. I'm hoping that you like this thing that I'm about to give to you, and if you accept this thing, then, please let me know that you want to have a relationship with me, and then maybe we can do something together. So that's how I would look at it. So the external form doesn't matter as much to me as that internal exchange of energy, whether it's with a god or a spirit being or a forest spirit or whatever. I think that the process is the same regardless of the label. So that would be my take on that. Free Spirit said hi at Jonathan. Canary says at Osrin, most of my most vivid and intense nighttime experience come when I am doing absolutely nothing to my knowledge to instigate anything. Yeah. Ray J says, so cool to see your perspective on things. Thank you. Mia says, do you guys have any stories with spirits during Halloween? Well, Halloween is when we walk among the dead or talk to the dead or deal with the dead. And for people who worship ancestors, it's a good time for them to commune with their ancestors that have gone before them. I've been at a dumb supper, a couple of them, which are interesting, where you do the entire supper backwards. You have a chair set and a plate set for the dead to come and join. I see it as a really good time for processing, like things that have been left unsaid, unheard, kind of thing, with those who've passed before. I was invited to do a clearing, a cleansing for this location here in town, and she called me up on Halloween of all times, and got us to go over there, and at the same time invited all these teenage kids to come and do like a haunted house, which made it very difficult to actually do anything for the spirit that we could hear. My granddaughter was with me, and we both heard her clear as a bell saying, "Help me," in our ear. But, the teenagers were like, "Oh my God, my hair, something moved my hair." They were like running around freaking out all over the place. So I couldn't really do anything on Halloween in that location because of the person who set it up and how it was set up. So we had to go back later, a much later time, actually, when I think the place had actually changed hands before we could get back there to assist this poor young girl who'd been murdered at the location. So, I definitely am feeling the thinning of the veil this year quite a bit. It seems to be more intense than usual for me, and I've heard other people saying the same thing. I don't know if that's a combination of all the people that have passed in our country and around the world because of the epidemic, the pandemic that we're going through. Our local population, we've had so far 91 people have died in a fairly small community since this began, and less than a year. A year ago we had no deaths, so we're still not at the point when we started losing people to the pandemic. And everybody being stuck indoors for an extended period of time, being more inward, inward looking and that kind of thing, could certainly have had a psychic effect in general, overall, that kind of stuff. So Free Spirit says, "I think Wicca and its rituals are very similar to the Hindu rituals I grew up with." And thank you. You're welcome. Eleanor says, "Hi, Spirit." Taylor says, "Yes, it's been very interesting to see the similarities and differences. I was also surprised how much folk magic was involved in the Christianity before how narrow it is today."
Very true.
Lots of stuff in the Bible about magic spells and curses and hexes and all sorts of things. Canary says, "Taylor, it could have been a complete BS, but I once read that the pentagram used to be used by some Christians way, way, way back." Trying to remember if I've heard that or not.
I know that there was some religious use. I don't know if it was the Christians or... And of course, you're the Star of David, of course. But yeah, years ago I read some stuff on that, but I do not remember myself.
Elidor says, "Your ancestors are fairies. You work with them." I'm kidding. Well, maybe not. You may not be kidding. That may be actually who my ancestors are. And those I work with for sure, so we'll see. I don't know. Definitions. Jessica said, "I was trying to think of what my grandparents might like as an offering, and I went straight to Quality Street chocolates for my maternal grandma," which is great news because maybe we could share. Well,
that
after
sounds like a great idea.
and after she gets her part of the chocolates, then you can eat them, because that's how that works. Because they don't have mouths, so you can take the other part out, and that's good. So Canary says, "Here is a question: why does the clairvoyant at a local witchy shop keep telling me I must connect with Lilith because she isn't very good at what she's doing? And Lilith is now the most popular person, spirit, or whatever in her reality, or any dark goddess must be Lilith. I don't know."
I'd be very careful of anybody telling you anything like that about any specific being that they can pick up. You should be connected with one of these deity archetypes or something.
I would be cautious as well, because it's your choice, not someone else's choice. I did have a reading once by a seer, and it's a completely different kind of reading than a regular psychic reading. And she actually did, she said more helpful things than any kind of reading I've ever had. Most of the other quote-unquote psychic readings I've had were just a bunch of idiot people who didn't know what the hell they were doing and were projecting all over me and not reading me. They were reading, I don't know, at one point I thought there might be a dog hiding in a closet in the room that they were reading because it would have been more accurate than me. But you know, a lot of times people go to psychics because they want someone to tell them what to do, and that's what she's doing. She's telling you what she thinks you want her to tell you what to do. But it's your path. So you have to make the choice and the decision. And I personally try to avoid telling people what I think they should do. I give them information that I have, but it's your personal relationship with the universe that's important, not her perception of what your personal relationship should be, right? I know you know this. I'm preaching to the choir here.
That's true. Christians in the pentagram. Sorry, I'm reading ahead.
Jonathan says apparently all the cool witches are connecting with Lilith. They consider her all dark and spooky, and she needs to be reclaimed for women's power.
That kind of brought up one thing I wanted to mention, though. You have to be careful with these foreign deities, too, because now there are a lot of people, at least in the U.S., that are connecting an ancient deity, I believe Ishtar, but I might be mistaken, and connecting it through some etymology and some academic work to basically the demon Astaroth.
Which is completely and totally inaccurate.
And they're then worshiping the Goetic demon, believing they're worshiping
Ishtar,
this ancient deity. So
it's either Ishtar or Astarte.
Yeah, it was one of those, and I don't remember which, but yeah, that's not a... You need to be careful what your source material is, I guess, when you come right down to it. That was all.
Philippa says, I'm more open to working with deities than once I was, but so far it's still me and Christ. And Canary says, yeah, Jonathan. Jonathan says, Christians all put a pentagram on top of the Christmas trees. I did that to my mother one year when she came to visit. And I, going through and seeing all the pentagrams everywhere. Oh, look, there's a bunch of witches living in that house. They just don't know that they're witches. But look at that. They got pentagrams all over the place. My mother was rolling her eyes and sighing. I was being a bad girl. I was having fun with her. Oh, well. So Philippa says that, Jonathan, I have a pink fairy on the top of my tree. And Canary says that I'm going to have to point that out to a few people. Yeah, it is sort of entertaining. And, of course, we all know about the pagan roots of Christmas anyway, so they don't want to hear about them anymore. I see that now, too. Mia says, when I go to bed, sometimes screaming thoughts appear in my head that do not fit the context. I mean, these are thoughts in my voice, but they are very strange. Intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, it could be like larva or something potentially, or many other things.
Sometimes you have to choose what to ignore and what to pay attention to, and sometimes spirits will just sort of wander through and see, hey, maybe if I yell at this person, they'll give me some attention. And yeah, you have to decide for yourself whether you think it's worth it or not. Ian gets random pieces of information from the past and book authors and stuff that he's never heard of that pop into his head. And then he has to look them up and decide, do I really want to read this book or not?
It's true.
Usually the information is correct. There is actually someone named that, and they have written a bunch of books, but yeah.
By the way, I gave you the wrong name for the last one. It was Amber Wolf.
Oh, okay.
Just in case anybody here is familiar with their stuff, that was the last one that precipitated out of the ether for me.
Yeah, it just kind of randomly popped into your head.
Turns out she is an esoteric author.
Free Spirit. Ishtar is very similar, same as Kali. No, not at all. Ishtar is more of a mother goddess, a great goddess. Kali is not. I mean, there is a mother form of her, but they're very different, energetically speaking.
Different characters.
I think, at least that's my impression. Canary says, I'm happy with who I have now. I'm happy seeing who comes to me. Then I can feel them out and decide then if I wanted to deal with them, and at least then I've not invited in something I might not want. I went, oh, there, which is harder to get rid of because I invited it in. True. And you know, it's always okay for you to change your mind, too, just because you invite someone in. So Osreen says, my grandma is a witch who does curses. My family is very codependent, and I believe she might have cursed my dad while she was very angry with him. What could be the outcomes if it wasn't done properly? How to protect against intrusive psychics? Okay, there's two different questions. Well, I have a video on breaking hexes and curses. If you know what the curse is, it's easier to break it. Curses and things, magic of any kind, really only works if the person who is the subject of that accepts on some level the curse or the blessing. So that's why we always ask for permission for healing and that kind of thing.
Standard type of curse, unless somebody sends an elemental at it.
Well, but still, it's so for someone who's aware, you can avoid that kind of stuff. But someone who isn't, and who's also already predisposed to believing that it's going to happen to them, it makes it much more problematic, because then you're dealing with their large subconscious belief and acceptance of such a thing.
And actually, the if it wasn't done properly, that would probably be a good thing, because then it would make the curse less effective, not really have any other side effects that unless I'm misunderstanding the question a little bit, which could be.
Yeah, so XCOM Jack wants how to protect against intrusive psychic attacks. Good boundaries. Doing your own work, your inner work, knowing who you are, knowing who and what is inside of you. I mean, as far as like your thoughts versus someone else's thoughts, your feelings versus someone else's feelings. Because you cannot stop a psychic attack if you don't know that it's happening. If you don't know it's not you, there's not much you can do.
Yeah, and then you can build up your strength by building up your willpower.
Yeah.
To help you reject things, but that takes time and work.
Well, if you know who you are, then it's a lot easier. You have to be able to identify it first, and then learn the protections. We've got a bunch of different videos on, different ways to protect your space, different types of stones you can use, or rituals that you can use in order to create those boundaries, because you're creating a boundary on the mental and astral plane, because that's what comes through is the feeling and the thought form and that kind of thing. So, yeah, the more you learn, the better able you are to do that kind of stuff. You can charge up stones to keep other people's thoughts out of your space and so forth. And if you have good boundaries, it's just like it's a no-go scenario. It's like there is a barrier here, and unless you have permission to come in, you can't. And, that's what I do. It's like I've had to kick some people out of my mental space over the years because they didn't listen. And it's like, no, not happening. So, Jonathan says, to me, it sounds like anxiety attacks. Barton's process of subconscious training just before sleep recently helped me fix that in myself. Good. Awesome. Mia says, Franz Barton. He would be the guy we've been talking about a lot. Canary says, Jonathan, that's a good point. Sometimes in this walk of life, we forget that we're humans that feel anxious and depressed because of life. I know I struggled with the difference early on. Jonathan said, seriously, people study Franz Barton. Yeah, we agree.
Yeah, I ditto that.
Philippa says at Mia, I sometimes have intrusive thoughts and they always occur when I'm extremely tired, exhausted. If this is you, then try to take care of your sleep routine. You do what you can. Canary says, I had to chuck someone out from keep trying to peep into my life without going through the horror of just asking me what I'm doing. Well, I mean, seriously, it's your personal space. You are permitted to decide who and what gets allowed in it, regardless of where it comes from. So that's why we talk about boundaries a lot. You got to definitely have those boundaries in your life with regular people. I mean, if you didn't have any boundaries, any random person who stopped and wanted to talk to you, you'd have to stop and talk to them, whether you wanted to or not, or take a ride, or, do them a favor, or, I mean, we have opportunities to set boundaries constantly. We're always having to set boundaries, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's good. They're good to have. So, XCOM says, thanks a lot. And Mia says, thank you guys, you're welcome. Boy, I can't believe we're coming up on an hour and 25 minutes. Goes fast. Mia says, thank you guys. Jonathan, or Philippa says that Jonathan, yes. Barden, yay. You first recommended him, so thank you. Yes, he is definitely one of the people we would recommend. We're nice and rainy and drippy here today, and we have no leaks in our temple, so yay, the fixing of the roof has worked so far.
Seems to be the case, yes.
It seems like all the leaks that were coming into here actually were coming from the other roof on the main house. So
I guess if anybody's got any last questions, they better...
Now's the time to get them in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you believe in demons? I believe that there are spirits that people call demons. I don't know that I believe in demons in the Christian sense of demons, that there's an underworld filled with them and that their whole goal is to try and trip us up and make us do things that we'll regret so that we can then go to hell. But I think that there are certainly spirits out there that are not compatible with human existence, that they have things that they take care of and that they do that would be very difficult for us to either comprehend or be around. I don't deal with what people call demons anyway, so as long as they stay away from me, they have nothing to worry about. It's just like, Jessica says, I would love some rain here. It was supposed to rain all week, but most of it blew by without falling on my neighborhood. Yeah, impressive storm clouds, though. It's the first time we've actually been getting some healthy rain, so it's been good. We needed it a lot. Philippa says, happy roof. Thank you all, and so much for my early night. You're welcome. You didn't go to sleep like you were going to. Elidor says, nice, Smot. Have you made it? I don't know. Mott? Have you made it? Austin says,
talking about something in the temple here. Something they could see in the camera,
I don't know. We've got Kuan Yin, and we've got
Maybe she talked about color anyway.
Kununos. This is Ishtar. I mean Isis.
Sorry, got Ishtar going.
You got me going. Yeah, I guess this could be a Mahat, because it's Egyptian. She's Egyptian. So depending on your focus, I thought she was Isis to me when I made her. That's what's going on. Okay, finally I figured it out.
I'm not familiar with the Egyptian deities, so.
She's like the goddess of balance, I think. If I remember, there's a lot of them. So Osrin says, "What are your thoughts on Hermeticism?" That would be Ian.
Read Franz Barden.
Read Franz Barden if you're interested in Hermeticism. Yes, around your neck.
Yeah, I haven't found much other Hermeticism to be of much value to me myself. It's all been a little more intellectualized, the stuff that I tried to study that has used the term. There's something with the Hermetic stuff and the actual writings of Hermes and that type of thing, which offers some interest for sure.
It's okay. It was our confusion, so, not a problem. Just took us a while to figure out what you were asking, because sometimes we're slow. But hey, at least we're here, so that's a good thing. Canary says, I told a fellow witch once that I read up on ISIS and a lot and found it really interesting. She had a breakdown not knowing who ISIS was, but knowing the terrorist organization. Oh no. Yeah, I remember when that happened and everybody in the pagan community was yelling, it's like, ISIS is not a terrorist group, it's a goddess from ancient Egypt. Yeah. Have you worked with Loki? Not really.
Right.
No, neither one of us have worked with Loki, although I have worked a little bit with Hermes, who's similar to Loki in some ways.
Yeah, and with Eliwa, which also has some similarities.
Julia says, how do I maintain boundaries with Jesus freaks? Don't engage in any kind of conversation with them whatsoever. Do not encourage them in any way. Do not answer any questions.
Or they'll run off to Portland. Move away. Sorry, I scared one off once.
Well, I've scared some people too. Anyway, apparently. At least I thought it was my fault. But really, the only thing you can do is ignore them and not engage. That's the boundary, because anytime you offer an answer, you're offering an opening for a discussion, which then they will take and run with. So that's my best advice, is to not engage in a conversation with them. Because, they're welcome to believe whatever they want, and so are you. You don't have to justify your beliefs, and you don't have to understand theirs. They can be separate, and that's fine. Any ideas on a deity that help regulating emotions? No, not at the moment.
I don't, that's a...
Too late. I had to block her number. Christian's been getting crazy this year. I tried to be nice and it backfired. Thanks. You're welcome. So I guess that's it for our show today, because we are now at an hour and a half and counting. So, banishing salt, throw the salt at them. Yes, we've talked about that before. Tell them to leave you alone. We can now get pink Himalayan salt and throw that, instead of just regular old table salt.
Get the really coarse stuff myself, the road salt.
Yeah. Have you heard of any of death doulas? Instead of assisting with birth, they help people with their end-of-life transition instead, and I've been curious about the field, not sure how much of it is spiritual. I've heard about them, but I don't know any in person. There's some other organizations that do similar kinds of things, like the Celebrants. Some of them work with death and funerals and stuff like that, so you'd have to decide. When is the best time to start deity work? I'm a baby witch. When you're called to it. So I gotta go now. So thank you. And write in more questions, and we'll see you all next Sunday. And hopefully we'll have a better week this week than we did last week, and everything will go good, and I can get a few videos up and running to answer some of your other questions and see. So Jonathan thinks you should start with Aphrodite. She was definitely my first, so what the hey. I would agree. That'd be a good one to start with. So, everybody, we always appreciate you coming in and asking questions and stuff and keep us on our toes. And this has been another good live stream. Yep. We have really enjoyed it a lot. So, thank you all. We'll see you all later. Bye-bye. And blessed be.